Everyone thinks you have it all together.
In fact, if we were to ask your friends or colleagues to describe you, they would probably use words like driven, organized, reliable, or perfectionist. You are likely the person who always replies to emails within 5 minutes. You are the one who arrives 5 minutes early to every meeting. You are the one who remembers everyone's birthday,
Organizes the group trips, and submits projects days before the deadline.
On the surface, your life looks like a perfectly calibrated machine. You look like the epitome of success. But they don't see what happens when the door closes. They don't hear the noise inside your head. Because the truth is that success isn't fueled by passion or ambition.
It is fueled by fear.
You aren't doing the work early because you love the work. You are doing it early because the thought of being late physically hurts you. You aren't triple-checking the email because you are thorough. You are doing it because you are terrified of making a single humiliating mistake.
You can't sit still and watch a movie without feeling a creeping sense of guilt.
A voice whispering that you should be doing something productive.
You feel like a swan gliding across a lake, calm and elegant above the water, but underneath, your legs are paddling violently just to keep you from drowning.
If this sounds like you aren't just type A and you aren't just stressed.
You are likely living with high-functioning anxiety.
And here is the most isolating part of this experience. Because you are so good at hiding it, and because your anxiety produces results that society applauds.
Nobody thinks you need help. People compliment your anxiety. They give you promotions for your anxiety.
They tell you how much they wish they were as disciplined as you are. So, you suffer in silence, feeling like an imposter who is one minor slip-up away from being exposed as a fraud. But before we go any further, I need you to take a deep breath and listen closely to what I am about to tell you. You are not broken. You are not crazy. And you are definitely not a fraud. What you are experiencing is not a character flaw. It is a biological trade-off. Your brain has simply calibrated itself to a setting of high alert to ensure your survival.
It is like driving a high-performance sports car that is stuck in first gear. The engine is powerful, but it is screaming because it doesn't know how to shift.
In this video, we are going to take that engine apart. Now that we have stripped away the mask of perfection, let's look at the mechanics of what is actually happening.
To understand this, we need to categorize the experience into specific profiles. This brings us to Type 1, the architect of control. This is the version of you that the world sees, and frankly, the version that the world rewards. If you fall into this category, your anxiety does not manifest as freezing or hiding. It manifests as overfunctioning. Standard anxiety often paralyzes people.
It keeps them in bed. It makes them avoid phone calls. But high-functioning anxiety does the exact opposite. It propels you forward. You handle anxiety by trying to control every possible variable in your environment. You believe that if you just work hard enough, plan detailed enough, and anticipate every single potential disaster, you will finally feel safe. You believe that if you just work hard enough, plan detailed enough, and anticipate every single potential disaster, you will finally feel safe. You are the person who says yes to every request at work because saying no triggers a catastrophic fear of rejection or failure. You engage in what psychologists call nervous habits that often go unnoticed. Maybe you bite your lip, pick at your cuticles, bounce your leg under the table, or play with your hair. These are the small leaks in the containment vessel. The defining characteristic of the architect of control is the inability to relax.
You might find yourself cleaning the kitchen at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday because a messy counter feels like a loud noise in your brain.
Relaxation feels dangerous. It feels like laziness. And for the architect, laziness is the ultimate sin. Because if you stop moving, the anxiety might catch up to you. But why? Why does your brain demand this level of constant vigilance? This leads us deeper into Type 2, the biological engine. Here, we need to stop talking about personality and start talking about neurochemistry. We need to look at the engine under the hood of that sports car. To understand your brain, we have to look at something called the Yerkes-Dodson Law. This is a psychological principle that dictates the relationship between pressure and performance. Imagine a bell curve. On the left side, you have low pressure and low performance. This is boredom.
On the right side, you have high pressure and low performance. This is overwhelming anxiety or panic.
Most people perform best right in the middle, with a moderate amount of stress. But you? You have learned to live on the dangerous far edge of the curve. You have conditioned your brain to believe that you need high levels of stress to function. You don't just tolerate pressure, you unknowingly manufacture it. This connects directly to your HPA axis, the interaction between your hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and adrenal glands. This system controls your stress response.
For most people, the HPA axis activates when there is a tiger or a fire or a sudden crisis, and then it shuts off. For someone with high-functioning anxiety, the HPA axis is like a light switch that got stuck in the on position.
Your body is constantly bathing in cortisol, the stress hormone. But here is the tragedy of type 2. You have become dependent on that cortisol spike to get things done. You use anxiety as your fuel source. You wait until the deadline is looming to start the project because you need that chemical rush of panic to focus. This is why you feel that crushing exhaustion at the end of the day.
You haven't just been working. You have been chemically sprinting away from a predator that doesn't exist for 12 hours straight.
This biological mechanism also explains the imposter syndrome that plagues you. Because your motivation comes from fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of being found out. You can never internalize your success. When you achieve something, you don't feel pride, you just feel relief.
You feel, thank God I survived that.
And then immediately, the cycle starts over for the next task. You are swimming like a duck. Calm on the surface, but underneath, your little webbed feet are paddling so hard against the current that your muscles are screaming.
So, we have the architect who controls everything to stay safe, and the biological engine that runs on fear-based fuel.
It paints a bleak picture. It sounds like a life sentence of exhaustion. But it isn't, because there is a third type. A third perspective that changes everything. What if I told you that this hypervigilance isn't a malfunction? This brings us to type 3, the Sentinel. This is where we flip the script. This is where we stop looking at your anxiety as a defect and start looking at it as a high-performance feature that has simply gone rogue.
If we look at this through the lens of evolutionary psychology, your brain is actually a masterpiece. Thousands of years ago, when our ancestors were sleeping in caves and forests, who do you think was the most valuable member of the tribe?
Was it the person who slept soundly through the night? No. It was the person who woke up at the snap of a twig. It was the person who was constantly scanning the horizon for threats.
It was the person who double-checked the food supply and anticipated the coming winter.
That person is you.
High-functioning anxiety is essentially a state of hyper-arousal and hypervigilance.
While this is exhausting in a safe environment, it stems from a brain that processes information at a much higher resolution than the average person. You aren't seeing things that aren't there. You are seeing everything that is there. Think about the qualities that make you suffer, and let's look at the flip side of that coin.
You suffer from overthinking. That is actually deep analytical processing.
You have the ability to simulate multiple future scenarios in seconds. In a crisis, while others are freezing, you have already calculated Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. You are a natural strategist.
You suffer from being a people pleaser and worrying about what others think.
That is actually high emotional intelligence, EQ.
You are hyper-tuned to micro-expressions and shifts in tone. You can read a room instantly. You know exactly what people need before they even ask for it.
That empathy, when boundaries are applied, makes you an incredible leader and a deeply supportive friend. You suffer from perfectionism? That is actually excellence and attention to detail. You see the patterns that are out of place.
You catch the errors that would cause problems down the line. You care deeply about quality in a world that is often satisfied with mediocrity.
The problem isn't the machinery itself. The problem is the calibration.
The Sentinel is designed to protect the tribe from lions and famine.
But in the modern world, there are no lions.
There are only emails, awkward social interactions, and ambiguous text messages.
Your brain, in its attempt to be helpful, is treating an unread notification with the same biochemical urgency as a predator in the bushes. You have been trying to fix yourself by shutting the system down, by trying to force yourself not to care, or by numbing the noise.
But you can't fire the Sentinel. It's part of your DNA. The goal isn't to become a careless person.
The goal is to teach the Sentinel the difference between a tiger and a kitten.
It is about realizing that this intense energy inside you is not a curse, it is jet fuel.
So, how do we learn to drive this high-performance vehicle without crashing?
How do we take this potential energy and stop it from turning into kinetic destruction? To answer this, we need to look at the relationship between two specific parts of your brain, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex.
Think of your brain as that sports car we mentioned earlier. The amygdala is the gas pedal. It is ancient, emotional, and reactive.
Its job is to detect danger and flood the engine with fuel to get you moving now. The prefrontal cortex is the driver. It is the logical, rational part of the brain responsible for steering, planning, and hitting the brakes.
For someone with high-functioning anxiety, your amygdala is hypersensitive. It presses the gas pedal down to the floor at the slightest provocation.
A vague email from your boss? Gas pedal.
A friend doesn't text back immediately? Gas pedal.
A messy living room? Gas pedal.
The problem isn't the car. The problem is that the driver, your prefrontal cortex, is exhausted.
It is trying to steer a car going 200 miles per hour on a winding road,
constantly fighting to keep it on the track. This is why you feel tired but wired. Your engine is revving, but your brakes are worn out.
The solution is not to destroy the engine. You need that engine to achieve great things. The solution is to strengthen the driver and learn how to shift into neutral. Here is how you begin that process.
First, you must practice cognitive diffusion. This is the art of separating yourself from your thoughts. When the Sentinel screams, "We are going to fail," instead of believing it, simply acknowledge it as a noise the engine is making. You can literally say to yourself, "I am having the thought that I am going to fail." This tiny linguistic shift creates space between you and the anxiety. It puts the driver back in control. Second, you need to conduct reality testing. When your body gives you that cortisol spike over a deadline, ask yourself, is this a tiger or is this a task? The physical sensation is the same, but the reality is different. Remind your amygdala that while the task is important, it is not life-threatening.
You are safe.
And finally, you must redefine what rest means. For the architect of control, sitting on the couch doing nothing often causes more anxiety than working. So don't try to force passive relaxation. Engage in active rest. Do something that occupies your hands but frees your mind. Cooking, painting, walking, or organizing. Let the engine idle gently instead of trying to shut it off cold. High-functioning anxiety is a heavy burden to carry. It tells you that you are only as good as your last achievement. It tells you that if you stop running, you will cease to matter.
But that is the lie.
You are not valuable because of what you do. You are valuable because of who you are. Your empathy, your diligence, your depth of feeling, these are gifts, not taxes you have to pay to exist. You have a powerful mind. It is intense, yes. It is demanding, absolutely. But it is also capable of incredible insight and creation.
You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to become a chill person who doesn't care.
You just need to learn to be kind to the driver.
So, take a breath. Shift into neutral for a moment. The world will not fall apart if you pause.
Now, I want to hear from you. Which type resonated with you the most? Are you the architect, the biological engine, or are you starting to see yourself as the Sentinel?
Let me know in the comments below. And if you found value in this analysis, consider subscribing to join our community. We are all just trying to understand our own minds, one layer at a time. Thank you for watching, and remember, be gentle with yourself.